Greetings to everyone. Boosty in the description, Naruto Lemon comes out there, you can subscribe. This is a story about a femme Gaara whose life was ruined by someone. Chapter 6 to 12. Enjoy watching. Chapter 6, Meetings. At the Kazekage residence, a penguin crashed into me. More precisely, it flew into the sandy defense. To put it mildly, I went nuts. The bird, having indignantly told me everything it thought about me and my sand in particular, plopped further down the corridor like a cheerful turtle. I looked at the proud little penguin, distantly thinking that the quality glitches had gone. Natural ones like that. Maybe you shouldn't have climbed into the Median greenhouse? They obviously don't grow dandelions there. A disheveled ANBU shoujo jumped out from around the corner and blurted out, Where? Where is this one? Penguin? I carefully clarified. Although it's dangerous, if it's really a glitch, they'll take you for a crazy person. Although, no, they think so to her. Just a little bit. Shoujo nodded not quite adequately and, having waited for instructions on the right path from me, rushed further, disappearing around the corner. I could barely restrain the desire to hit my head on something heavy. An ANBU chases a penguin into the Kazekage's residence. I have no words. Even obscene ones. Maybe it's still glitches? It would be great. That's it, no more greenhouses. At all. Never. Shaking out my overgrown hair, I went straight to my father's office. He greeted me with a complete lack of security and a table littered with missions. Okay. I'll wait. In the end, nothing is spared for the sake of a great goal. And to fray the nerves of my dearly beloved Chiyoba-sama is generally sacred. Moreover, I have personal complaints about her in the form of a crookedly sealed shukaku. A quarter of an hour later, a slightly shabby father burst into the office. Behind him is an ANBU holding two penguins under his arm. The Kazekage said distantly that this was a gift from the ambassador of the country of frost. Looks like he's still in trouble. Penguins too, it seems. Penguins. In Suna. Get hurt. Perhaps this gift surpassed all others in originality. And why do all diplomats consider it their sacred duty to give the Kazekage and his children some crap that should not exist in nature? Why did sweets, flowers, or even anything unoriginal go out of fashion? Although I got carried away with flowers, they already gave me one. Who knew that Temari loved plants so much? Now this carnivorous thing is growing in our garden. And Temi stops all attempts to pour something poisonous on her in the bud. Raza, interrupted by a hiss in the spirit of Orochimaru, said that these fiends of hell, that is, penguins, immediately after the ceremonial presentation, took advantage of the general outrage of the inhabitants of Suna and safely escaped. The ambassador, by the way, did the same. Obviously to avoid gratitude from the happy Kazekage. As a result, only after the entire residence was on alert were the birds caught. And now they look around displeasedly, hanging from the hands of the ANBU. The penguins clearly did not like their new place of residence, and they decided to express it. And Bushnik. He didn't appreciate the cries of the birds sold directly in his ears, still being in deep shock. Kazekage-sama, where should I put this? He raised the birds? The father hissed something uncensored in response, and waved his hand to the floor. So they'll try to escape again? Put them on your back. I climbed in. Well, I don't have the strength to look at this circus. They definitely won't run away. Shoujo was skeptical about my proposal, but due to the lack of alternatives, he did what was proposed. The penguins flapped their wings and tossed and turned, but could not rise on their own. The ANBU smelled of poorly concealed gloating. Well, yes, now you have at least a little revenge. But what to do with penguins? Their father won't drag them home, that's clear. And where should we keep them? In a refrigerator? In our climate, penguins will not last long. How did they just get them into the village? Is there something in the scroll? Although, this is not my problem. Toussaint, I began carefully. Where does Elder Chiyo live now? Why do you need it? Actually, not for me. But it's too early for the respected Kazekage to know about this. Fortunately for me, My father didn't need an answer, so he distantly handed over the carefully encrypted Chiyoba-sama. I'm sure I haven't gotten over the gift yet. Which is good for me. Raza sat still, meditated, looking at the tossing and turning penguins, and thought. Looks like he decided that work wouldn't work today. He asked when I would deign to go home. I'm glad it happened right now. The father was also happy and volunteered to accompany him to the exit from the residence. At the same time, he waved to Shoujo to capture the penguins. All three smelled of doom. In the large hall, our strange procession was noticed by one of the clients, a merchant who was just completing a mission to protect the caravan. Seeing the penguins, he teleported to his father. Such speed simply cannot be explained by anything else, and carefully asked where such beautiful birds were being taken. For slaughter, the Kazekage hissed angrily. The merchant was incredibly happy and immediately offered to buy the penguins. They, as it turned out, were extremely thoroughbred. The father was also happy and ordered the ANBU to immediately give the penguins to the good man before he changed his mind. Another 5 minutes were spent on bargaining, and now the Kazekage, happy that he had gotten rid of an unexpected headache, went to buy us normal gifts. On one's own. Suna also received regular missions to deliver snow and seals, no less. Great! I left the residence, looked around the crowded street, caught the nearest police officer and asked where my brother was. He muttered something into the radio, waited for the same incomprehensible answer, and said that his brother was just at home. Gorgeous! I found out. I made my brother happy from the threshold. Father told me where Chiyoba-sama lives. And then she was blocked by sand. But this didn't save me much from the fate of being squeezed by the bursting enthusiasm of Kankuro, incoherently muttering, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And the sand that enveloped me did not bother him at all. He just sneezed a couple of times and ruffled my hair in retaliation. And after that, let him just try to say that my sand scares him. Yeah, of course. And before that, it looks like he was pretending, the brat. Sasori for Nissan, and for other puppeteers, is an idol, a hero, and generally a Superman in a cloak with red clouds. Even the status of Nukenin, who are despised by the shinobi of hidden villages, could not completely cover up all the merits and achievements of the Red Scorpio in the field of puppets. Puppet masters generally have their own system, in which Chikamatsu Manzaemon Kami-sama himself, the creator of the Grey Art, Haro Seiji, is its embodiment. Sasori also entered the pantheon as the creator of his own movement Red Art. But Chiyoba-sama is generally a separate topic and stands apart, but somewhere on the level of Kami-sama. She is her own rank and title. And not only for the shinobi puppeteers, but for the entire Suna. Because during her unrealistically long life for a shinobi, that alone is worth it, she managed to literally recreate the ironing core in Suna from scratch, conduct a bunch of research on poisons, create half a ton of scrolls with forbidden techniques, and gain the right to ban them, which, actually, the prerogative of the Kage, and also won for Suna the exclusive right to produce and use puppets. As a result, puppeteers from other countries moved to Hidden Sand, and all those who disagreed quickly departed to another world, not forgetting to give away all their techniques and achievements. And all this aside from the legendarily cheesy character with twists and carefully planned insanity. Actually, I needed Chiyo first of all. But it turned out to be impossible to simply lure the old pepper pot out of the hole in which it had dug in. Well, it's okay, I still have time. Therefore, it was decided to act in a roundabout way, namely, to involve Kankuro with his irrepressible enthusiasm for puppets. By the time I become Kage, my beloved brother will get the harmful granny out of the ground for me. As a gift for the position, yeah? And watching Ken, crazy with joy, jumping around the room, I realized that the decision was very correct. I wasn't particularly worried about Kankuro. The status of children of the current Kage gave a lot of benefits. Therefore, we could play pranks as we pleased, even within reason, because we could only be caught by the scruff of the neck by ANBU and taken to our father for re-education. For the 11th time. Actually, this is exactly what happened the very next day. On his first try, Kankuro failed to climb into the abode of the elders Chiyoba-sama and Ebisuji-sama, but he did not despair and literally beamed with enthusiasm, hanging from Shoujo's shoulder. But the father, instantly appreciating the new prospects, hit his head on the table. I was, at least partially, avenged. A walk along the Suna at night yielded unexpected results. Turning onto the next street, I heard screams. Don't think that you can do anything. You're just an orphan. There was clearly a fight in the nearby gateway. I looked around the corner. Boys about 4 years older than me attacked their dark-haired peer in a crowd. He fought back quite successfully, having already given his offenders a lot of bruises, but still, 1 against 4 was not very handy. I took a closer look at his clothes. Well, come on, the patch of the ANBU Children's Corps. Now I understand why he is so strong. And it infuriates ordinary boys so much. There was a regular orphanage in Suna, that's a fact. And his students could either become shinobi or become civilians. But few people know that talented children were looked after by ANBU almost from infancy and taken into the ANBU Children's Corps. Let's just say that we raised our own future colleagues. Although, most likely, they were trained. This approach was quite effective, and shinobi trained in this way were, for the most part, simply monstrously strong and loyal. Ideal fighters of the invisible front. Almost a weapon. Meanwhile, the boy who was attacked was hit from behind and fell to the ground. They didn't let him get up, they kicked him in the stomach. Well, this is already disgusting. It is not customary even for shinobi to hit someone who is down, unless it is a battle for life. One of the attackers took out a kunai and raised it to his victim's face. 2 more grabbed the boy tightly from behind, forcing him to his knees. You should apologize. The main ringleader apparently hissed, receiving an angry look from his gray eyes in response. It seems that the tip of the kunai dangerously close to his face did not really frighten the boy. What a fighter! However, I still should have intervened. And where did you get the kunai, you brats? Although, kunai, in the hidden village, this is such a rarity, Stop it! I myself was surprised at how loud my voice sounded. The boys turned sharply in my direction, letting go of their prey. And they hatched not at all aesthetically pleasing. Well, yes. The picture is the same. A small girl with white skin. And a bear in his hands. Of course, where would we be without a bear? Just the perfect start to a horror movie. Moreover, I am already in a certain way possessed by a demon. Sorry, Shikaku, but they don't take offense at the truth. Perhaps, alone, in a dark gateway, I look somewhat surreal. One of the attackers, the one with the kunai, came up to me and, taking on the most threatening look, said, "You should get out of here, little one." I looked up at him with emotion. Kami, what a child he is. And his menacing appearance, laughter, and that's all. After Shikaku, I am no longer afraid of anything. That's why I only released Ki slightly. The sand began to flow like snakes under the children's feet. One such snake slid up the boy hanging over me and expressively closed around his neck. The reaction was not long in coming. Ah! Monster! Save me! Wow, they finally recognized me. Only the heels sparkled. What is significant is that the rescued boy did not even think about running away. Even more, he was not afraid of me. And he came closer, looking at me with interest. The boy was quite tall, angular, but with aspirations to grow into a rather handsome guy. I became thoughtful, looking at my hair of an unusual dark shade. For some reason, there was a strong association in my head with kunai. Well, maybe a shuriken. It reminded me of something, but I couldn't grasp the idea. But his attempts to imitate military bearing looked quite funny. Not at his age. True, I abruptly shut up, remembering how I actually looked, a minor misunderstanding that adult shinobi are afraid of. Meanwhile, the boy opened his mouth, and Kami sees it would be better if he did not do this. "Thank you, Haim-sama," and bowed. Such treatment almost made me sit on the ground. From shock. "You know who I am?" I asked carefully. This is the tone they usually use when talking to crazy people. "Dobaku no Gaara-sama, the youngest daughter of the Yondaime Kazakage-sama," this subject said without hesitation. And he bowed again. How polite. and he understands his place. Still, he was well trained in the Anbu Corps. But the appeal is no good. Just Gaara. Haim-sama, the boy repeated stubbornly. Of course, he's stubborn as a sheep, but he's not afraid of me and even argues with me. And so politely, it really infuriates you. Gaara-sama, I began threateningly. Don't grind your teeth. This is, after all, indecent. I confess I was wrong. How good it is when people are afraid of me. Such grace. Haim-sama. She closed her eyes, waiting out the rage. Does he want to get me? If yes, then everything worked out. So I need to calm down. Deep breath, and you? Ray. And it's not that I'm really curious, but it would be real blasphemy not to tell my brother and sister about him. Haim-sama. Come on. What about monster and demon? It's more familiar to me and more pleasant to people. Should I walk you home? Ray was the first to break the silence. I critically examined the rather shabby boy and shook my head negatively. He, correctly interpreting my gaze, became embarrassed, automatically touched his broken lip, hissed in pain and blushed even more. I giggled and turned around and went home. Then I stopped and thought. I caught the nearest ANBU and politely asked him to take me home with Shunshin. The ANBU, apparently impressed by the honor, listened to everything I told him. I had to repeat it. Slowly, deliberately, not paying attention to the fact that the shinobi's hand was trying to slide towards the kunai. I understood it the second time. What happiness! Otherwise, I already wanted to ask my father to introduce courses in my native language, since the speech of ANBU is not understood. I literally flew into my room, slamming the door forcefully. And she looked at herself critically in the mirror. No miracle happened. Not impressive. Too small, thin and pale, I don't even look my age. How have the ANBU not started feeding me yet? Although one was torn, that's for sure. But even so, walking around with a teddy bear is a shame. And undignified for the future Kazakage. Even if it's cute, funny, and generally canon. Inopportunely, I remembered the stupid Haim-sama, and my imagination helpfully drew me, sitting as if on a throne, surrounded by a bunch of toys. In a cute pink dress, entirely made up of ruffles, and holding a teddy bear. That's definitely a princess. What a nightmare! With an effort of will, she drove away the stupid vision, thought, and sat the bear in a place of honor. Let him wait for better times. For example, Temari's children. Just right for them. That's enough for me. It's time to find myself a new toy. I think Sand Pumpkin would work great. Stop messing around, I'll carry it around with me around the clock. I giggled, vividly imagining the stunned faces of my father and Baki-sensei when I go out to them early in the morning with a sand pumpkin on my back. Which is about 4 times bigger than me. Well, there are definitely benefits to meeting Ray. I wonder if we will meet again. Chapter 7, Mission. My eye twitched nervously. No, he's really kidding me. Another C-rank mission? That's it. I understand that he is worried, but we are the strongest team of Tsunagenin so far. And in the near future, simply the strongest sand team. Why do we need this mission? Although, it's a shame to say, we failed our first D-rank mission miserably. It would be funny if it weren't so sad. Well, we shouldn't have been sent to do chores. As a result, we decided that simply working with our hands was too tedious, boring, and generally not a royal thing, so we applied techniques. And the chakras did not swell so much. In a couple of seconds, the area of the deserts increased by several more square kilometers. And we would not have avoided shame if some idiots had not foolishly decided to attack us. As it turned out later, after identifying these same suicides piece by piece, these were wanted criminals. And on the same day we had a successful B rank. And they didn't let us near the crops anymore. It hurts. We, the children of the Kazakage himself, work for some peasants. Fie. I looked at my father. He looked at me. Nobody wanted to give up. Well, okay, I asked for it myself, older man. I jump straight onto a high-ranking table and sit in the lotus position right on the archival and arch-secret documents. Baki tactfully retreats to the wall and pretends to be a rag, not forgetting to first inform the ANBU on duty not to disturb Kazakage-sama in the next hour. What a clever girl. Temari and Kankuro, having correctly assessed the situation, gave up on us and collapsed on the sofa. Yes, this will take a long time. Taking a deep breath, I begin to list to my father the division of missions into ranks, their correspondence to the level of shinobi, our abilities. True, then I moved on to relations between countries, and the role of the alliance with Konoha. And I didn't forget to mention one reptile that will soon crawl to us. The father was imbued with it. This can be seen by the twitching eyelid. Oh yeah? I don't kill with sand. It's much more fun to morally destroy a person. This does not apply to the father. Advisors are picking on his brains every day. And they complain about me. Oh well. Let it go. I remember all of you, you erect bastards. The Kazakage was the first to lose his nerve. Because he tried to kill Bucky with a rank A mission scroll. Golden Sand politely opened the door. I deigned to get off the table and headed towards the exit. A yawning Temari and a sleepy Kankuro followed behind. Did they really spoil my entire speech? We walk along the streets of Suna. The people bow/nod politely. There is no longer any panic fear of me, although they are still afraid. But there are individuals who still consider me an uncontrollable weapon. It's okay, I'll get to them later. Now in the village there's something like an unspoken rule. They don't touch me, I don't touch them. There are also rumors that it was Temi and Ken who were able to control such a monster as me. And my father is sure that I am sane solely because of the death of Yashimaru. Well, I won't try to convince the person. It's easier for me. And the useless, depending on how you look at it. If you need to quietly remove extra shinobi, everything is very useful. Attempts on my life stopped. Under the motto, if Yashimaru couldn't, no one can. Oh yes. I'm already 13 years old. The canon will begin soon. Which, by the way, I decided not to change to the best of my ability. That way at least I'll know what to expect. But I have no desire to figure out what I've messed up with my intervention. I blew away the red strand that was stubbornly creeping into my mouth. My hair is long now. To the waist. But my plans are to compete with the Mizukage in hair length. What is Kankuro doing? More precisely, why? He just picked it up, came level with me and hugged me. Of course, I'm pleased, but not in the middle of Suna? Yeah, it got it. He was the one who showed that guy that it wasn't the best idea to mess with me. Yes, they are already driving away my fans. Cool. It's just a pity that this idiot simply didn't recognize me as the Kazakage's youngest daughter. Otherwise I wouldn't get involved. Or is the clothing too revealing? It seems, dressed in the image and likeness of the canon Gaara. Except instead of pants there's a short black skirt and leg nets, just like Neisan's. It seems like it turned out nice. I'm just kind of small and skinny. My red crown is just at the level of Kankuro's eyes, so my brother periodically tries to protect me from everything and everyone, even despite the fact that I am many times stronger. Our team is quite strange. I mean, it's not balanced, and we're different in age. But no one wanted to join the team with me. Like, this is too great an honor for them. I willingly believe it. It's about the same with brother and sister. Only they were feared as direct relatives of the Kazakage and the terrible me. Although, their character is not sweet either. What is Temi's fan worth? And Ken, who loves to pass off puppets as himself, and then scares everyone when Nisan's face crumbles. BRR. Even I feel uneasy from such cute faces of the dolls. How my brother manages to sleep in the same room with them is a mystery to me. Family relations have more or less improved. My father never succeeded in completely explaining everything for the village, everything to the detriment of himself and the children. Temari and Kankuro communicate with me quite normally. Although they were afraid. A little. They were very impressed by the sight of the sandy coffin. But they are already used to it. And they approach their opponents with sadistic smiles of anticipation. Did I make them like this? Well, never mind. We are shinobi, after all. Pity is in most cases inappropriate. And yet I began to look very much like Canon Gaara. I rarely speak in monosyllables. I hardly show any emotions. But whoever needs it understands me perfectly. On the issue of understanding, Shikaku and I have peace and quiet. He periodically mocks me, makes caustic jokes about me. He doesn't touch Temari and Kankuro. They passed. They sulked at each other for a week. Now it's taboo, but in case of a threat to my life, he is ready to help me. Beauty! Apchi! Well, why exactly the country of snow? It's fucking cold. And, as luck would have it, I'm wearing a skirt. Although, there is a way out, sand armor protects well from the cold. The truth consumes chakra immeasurably. She closed her eyes. Beauty, though. Snow, or rather a blizzard, cold, Christmas trees are growing. New Year. There is no such holiday here. Or it is simply not noted. Well, there is no snow in the land of the wind, even if you crack it. And then, Gaara. Thank you, Sensei. Just a little more and I would say hello to the branch. Who planted these trees on my path anyway? We reached the customer quickly. Angry and frozen. And this turkey doubted our ability to complete an A-rank mission. And we, I repeat, were very angry and very tired. After we managed to dig this penguin out of the corner in which he had huddled, we were provided with the best rooms and hot tea. We live well. Your mother! There were no more censored words to correctly describe the situation. Our opponents were a group of shinobi, jonin and several chunin. In general, it is difficult to give this task higher than B rank. It seems that the customer simply has a lot of money and an inflated sense of self-importance. A coward, in short. But that's not about that now. They ran away. We too. And according to the law of meanness, I was lucky enough to fight with a jonin, who, moreover, also mastered the element of water. And also ride on the ice of a frozen lake. That's it, I growled, trying to avoid the water dragon. There is no desire to wet the sand painfully, there is already so little of it left. Shirak. The sand defense did an excellent job of blocking the sneaky strike from behind. The water clone was pierced by sand bullets. And the sand got wet again. I chattered my teeth from the cold, thickening my sandy armor. And then the enemy already takes out kunai with explosion seals. Still, Baki should have fought the jonin. I can lose. Although after 10 minutes of fighting I still don't have a scratch. Never even touched me. And it seems to really piss him off. Throws kunai. Did you miss? Exo. Explosive seals ignite. I'm on the ice. Explosion. If I get out, I'll kill you. Slow and painful. Yeah, if I get out. I'm floating to the bottom like a stone. The sand instantly got wet, becoming not only useless, but also terribly harmful. Heavy, nasty, and icy. No offense intended, Mom. And the water is cold. 5 degrees, no more. And I am a heat-loving, desert plant. I rest my feet on the bottom. Has arrived. In all senses. The prospect of celebrating the main winter holiday at the bottom of the lake does not appeal to me. I touch the bottom with my hand, trying to ignore the fact that I'm already shaking from the cold. And there's not enough air, in general. Yep, minerals. If you crumble the bottom, you'll get a lot of sand. I close my eyes and dive into the subconscious. The raccoon lazily opened his eye, looking at the wet, angry me. Are you going to get sick or die? Shikaku, I begin ominously. Let's kill him. The tanuki choked on a yawn and stared at me with all his eyes. Well, yes. Usually it's the other way around. He is the one who persuades me to kill someone, and not always for the purpose. But I resist. With a majestic wave of his tail, the beige literally threw me out of my subconscious. The usual chakra, similar to a hot desert wind, flowed through the body. A tail began to form behind his back. Someone is going to die now. And definitely not me. A wave went across the lake. I began to slowly climb up on the sandy platform. The beauty is that now grains of sand, in principle, don't care about water. All you need to do is let the wind chakra pass through. You should have seen the face of this Jonin when he saw me. With bug duck chakra and a nervously wagging tail. Well, yes. Jinchuriki. Yes, a monster. And you pissed off this monster. I sharply raised my hands and, just a few seconds ago, the crushed rocks that became sand burst out of the water. I think about 7 tons somewhere. The water itself drops sharply downwards, due to the fact that the bottom has become 10 to 15 meters lower. The enemy didn't even have time to do anything. Just scream. The next second, everything was swept away by a wave of sand, and the Jounin was buried under tons of yellow mass. And I watched with a happy smile as snow began to fall in the newly created desert. Well, isn't it beauty? The tails slowly began to fall off behind my back. Everything suddenly swam before my eyes. Did you really spend that much effort? The last thing I heard before collapsing was an excited and frightened voice. Gaara! I spent the way to Suna on Nissan's back. Childhood reminds me, apchi. Crap. And yet I caught a cold. But I still need to somehow deal with Orochimaru, Chapter 8 Snake Sannin, at your service. I sat calmly on the wall, which in theory protects Suna from intruders, and looked at the view. Desert and sand. Oh, and cacti too. Quite the same type and dull. But for some reason I became so attached to all this. No, there is grass there, streams. I am more accustomed to the scorching sun, hot wind, and endless desert. This is all dear to me. But no philosophy can hide the idiocy of the situation. I've been sitting and guarding Orochimaru for several nights now. I'm not much of a censor, but Shikaku should let you know when the snake is nearby. I sighed, tiredly sprawled on the wall and stared at the sky. The full moon is coming soon. Again the tanuki will bother me with his muttering, a stupid habit that I can't wean the raccoon out of. There was a rustling sound. I lazily turned my head. This is true. The guards are thinking about how to get around me. They are afraid to pass by. But going far is not an option. What if I run away? She yawned, showing with all her appearance that I didn't care about the shinobi scurrying here and there. They seem to have calmed down. Security guards, motherfucker. If we were normal, I wouldn't be sitting here. Sorry, I was already lying down. It was decided to stop the attack on Konoha in the bud. Namely, to drive the Sannin into the neck as soon as his face appears on the horizon. Of course, I'm not going to fight Orochimaru. I'll just warn my father in time so that he doesn't dare follow some snake's lead. Although he is not going to yet. And then it will be possible to scold these wonderful watchmen, who have been annoying me for many nights with their whispers, for missing the nuke nin. I'm evil though. And another night was in vain. No one ever showed up. A waste of time. Although I used to wander around Suna at night. It has already crawled up and down it. Also not a particularly necessary activity. Sighing and complaining about fate, I still deigned to rise from the cool surface that had cooled overnight and rushed across the roofs to the house. Still a beauty. Breeze. And the sun is not yet hot. I burst into the Kazekage estate through the window, completely ignoring the door. The family ate breakfast half asleep. And I clearly unnerved them with my cheerful appearance. Well, that's not the point. We had breakfast, and tried to ask my father for a mission. It didn't work out. Like you see, Chunin Shuriken, an important event. As a result, my father began to tell us the true purpose of the exam, all these unofficial wars. The main thing is not to yawn. In any case, it all came down to one thing. We need to train more and wipe everyone's noses. And from our grins with Temi and Ken, the Kazekage realized that we would definitely wipe everyone's noses. And break the bones. That's how evil we are, Jihi. After breakfast, everyone fled in different directions. Father went to sit in the Kazekage chair, Kankuro locked himself in his workshop room. He'll probably be rummaging through the puppets. Temi went off to try wind techniques on Suna's Chunin. And you won't refuse her. The fan is heavy. And I was left alone. Well, just like one. I basically can't stay alone. And it's not even about the ANBU constantly watching me. Yes. I mean you, the Saban birds. A masked fighter sitting on the roof of a nearby house fidgeted nervously. Wow. I'm bored. There is no desire to walk around the village and scare the not-so-civil population. Are you going to get sick of schizophrenia? Crawled. What? Orochimaru, I say, near the village gates. You told me to warn you when it appears. The raccoon responded displeasedly. Crap. But I wanted to hear the rest of the story. I had to urgently blow myself up, grab a pumpkin with sand and use Shenshin to move to the roof of the Kazekage's residence. She brazenly sat down on the highest-ranking building in Suna, with her gaze indicated to the ANBU on duty to move away and pretended to be a decoration. A rooster on a weather vane, damn it. I'm sitting here, under the scorching sun, trying to get sunstroke. On guard so that Orochimaru does not kill the Kazekage. By the way, I warned him about the appearance of the Sannin. Now here he is also sitting, waiting. Depicts universal calm. And I'm like a support that will fall right on the serpent's head at the most inopportune moment. In general, I'm not worried that my father will agree to unite with the Nukenin simply for the sake of the imaginary destruction of Konoha. How many wars have already passed, but List at least gives a damn. Yes, and we have already discussed this situation with him. I attributed my knowledge of the future to Shikaka. Like it's all him. Yes, in any unclear situation you need to blame Shikaku. Now I'm simply worried that Orochimaru will kill his father, as in the canon? And then he will take his place, organize an attack. Not that Toussaint is a weak shinobi, it's just that, whatever one may say, he is a Sannin, and almost the fourth Hokage. Glory to Kami-sama for not becoming one. Now I hardly have a chance of winning a fight with him. But Shikaku should not be discounted. Although, there is a possibility that this reptile will have some kind of control over the Tanuki. It's not for nothing that he tried to set him against Konoha in the canon. I'm sure I was thinking about a way to control it. All this is dangerous. This was my entire reaction to the appearance of the great Sannin of Konoha, S-class Nukenin, Orochimaru. He's kind of slimy, or what? Overall a creepy guy. I focus on Sandai, quietly hovering in the Kazekage's office and observing the situation. Fortunately, my father noticed my technique in time and treated my healthy, or not, curiosity with understanding. Now the Kazekage is sitting at his table and carefully listening to the hissing of the Sannin about the plight of Suna, the dangers of an alliance with Konoha, offering help. Epithets. What epithets he chooses. I even thought about accepting his offer. Fortunately, Shikaka hit him on the head just in time. I'll thank you later. What can you do? The man has a talent for persuasion. The father listened carefully. He pretended to think. I was already worried. What if he agreed? No, what? Orochimaru, it seems, did not expect such direct disagreement. I said no. Now, get out of my village, Orochimaru-san. I've never seen my father so furious. The fists are clenched, the face seems to be petrified, and even smells of danger. The staring game has begun. Using ki. True, my father's creepy aura was clearly weaker. I couldn't hold back and released ki Shikaku. Orochimaru didn't even understand what happened at first. Still, Bijou is better at intimidating people. Even the Kazekage felt uneasy. But it's easier for him. He's been living in the same house with me for 13 years. The Sannin turned his head, trying to understand where the thirst for murder was coming from. Yeah, it seems he got it. Interesting. This great shinobi rasped, licking his lips. He has a long tongue. Nasty. And the language. And the Sannin himself. You'll regret it, the serpent said finally, approaching the door. And he gave the Kazekage his famous Orikimaro grin. Of course. The father nodded, and drove the Nukenin with a golden broom. Figuratively speaking. In reality, The golden shurikens that instantly appeared and quite eloquently stuck where the scientist had just stood. In general, if I really drove with a broom, golden. Fortunately, the ability to magnetism allows. Then there would be a huge broom. I imagined how, having taken on the full form of Ichibi, I was chasing the Sannin around Suna with a golden broom, corresponding to my size, and trying to sweep Orochimaru out of the village. She grabbed her head. My fantasy is sick, however. And at such an inopportune moment, she suddenly jumped up in the direction where the snake's tail flashed. It must be shown that attempts on the life of the Kazekage will obviously fail. And it will cost the Nukenin dearly. Nerve cells don't regenerate, do they? Orochimaru once again cast a dissatisfied glance at the sand village. Who knew that the Kazekage would be so stubborn? Also Jinchuriki. In any case, he was counting on Suna's support in destroying Konoha. Sarutobi-sensei had to be killed. It has been a long time since there was a new wind in the leaf. The air is stagnant. The mill stopped. Not interested. Unacceptable. If it doesn't work out to kill the head of the sand, the plan will have to be greatly adjusted. It's not that the Sannin didn't foresee Suna's refusal to participate in the plan, but for success, the sand village must dance to his tune. Orochimaru stopped abruptly. Something wrong. He should have moved a fair distance away from the hidden village long ago. But the entrance to the hidden sand, visible on the horizon, stubbornly denied this. Nukenin froze, determined the approximate direction of movement, and went forward. It felt like he was marking time. At least the dunes, absolutely identical to each other, did not replace each other at all along the entire path. The snake stopped again. And for good reason. A huge sand dune suddenly appeared right in front of him. And the two neighboring ones, right before his eyes, were literally blown away by the wind. A premonition began to creep into Orochimaru's head that someone was mocking him. Someone who knows how to manipulate sand. Suna appeared ahead again. This time the shinobi decided to go straight to the village gates. This is something new. Orochimaru grinned. The Sannin stared blankly at Suna. No more than 1.5 meters in diameter. I looked at it from a bird's eye view, one might say. Orochimaru extended his hand to make sure of the reality of such a peculiar sand castle, when Suna was suddenly blown away by a sharp gust of wind. Grains of sand got into his eyes, but the shinobi was able to clearly distinguish an inscription that appeared for a second. From the same grains of sand, it must be said, "We are always happy to welcome Orochimaru-sama to the hidden sand village." The Sannin smiled wryly. So the sand has a new wind. But it looks like plans will have to be changed. Chapter 9 Excursions around Konoha. No. But why? The brother continued to be indignant. No, I'll definitely kill him. We already need to move to the hidden leaf, and he's here. Because I said so. But Gaara! I'll kill you. The brother snorted offendedly, but it seemed he had no intention of giving up. Oh, where is the cannon? We got insolent here. Already contradicted. It will be necessary to restore the reputation of the terror of all Suna. Temari, at least tell him. The sister busily approached and examined the subject of our dispute with Kankuro, namely, his war paint. I have nothing against it. But this drawing is just terrible. Even I can hardly discern my brother in this painted something. Doesn't suit him. And I need my Nikun to be the very best. For example, Hyuga here. Gaara is right, Temi noted calmly. Against my will, a wide grin appeared. It doesn't matter. Kankuro was stubborn. That's it. Like a child. I wish I could puff out my cheeks, yeah? By the way, a nice sight. So you won't go anywhere, I calmly noted. You'll go anyway. Bucky intervened inopportunely. Who, by the way, is already quite fed up with our bickering. Once again I looked at the far from peaceful sensei. On an overly stubborn brother. To my sister, who agrees with me. Compromise? A few seconds later, Kankuro, looking more like a mummy, spat out sand. Don't be afraid. I hissed. We'll just change the drawing a little. Temari, get some purple paint. Konoha welcomed us with open arms. I mean ANBU. Strange, these usually don't stick out. Are they trying to make us feel afraid? Bucky walked with an important look to the main thing. I can't make out who is on the mask. We talked. We were stared at with suspicious glances. To me, with natural indifference, and the raccoon inside, it's purple. And for some reason my teammates and relatives are sure that I am, if not omnipotent, then very close to it. Why would that be? The ANBU looked at each other again, realized that there was zero effect, took something to note, and waved their hand invitingly somewhere in the direction of the Hokage residence. Welcome to the village hidden in the leaves, shinobi of Sunagekyo no Sato. Ugh, how pretentious. It's making my teeth hurt. We walked away from the gate. Bucky handed out passes and told us that the hotel had already prepared rooms for us. And sideways, like a crab, he headed towards the Hokage. A courtesy visit, so to speak. And they will also talk about the arrival of the Kazekage at the third stage. And where the hotel is, the bastard, he didn't say. Orientation in an unfamiliar village, or what? Walking around the streets of List turned out to be quite boring. If at the beginning it was still possible to marvel at the architecture, after Suna it was quite strange to see so many trees on the streets, then a disappointing truth emerged. Nothing interesting. Nothing. An ordinary village. And we had seen quite enough of the greenery during the day's journey. Maybe the Hokage rock, but it doesn't look like a symbol of eternity and harmony at all. Although, if you look closely, just not to admit that you are lost. Temari had already begun to complain, and even tried to slap her brother on the head a couple of times. He muttered something incoherent in response. Fortunately, the walk around the village in search of the notorious hotel is over. We stumbled upon it. On whom? That's right, the 7th team. Or rather, they stumbled upon us themselves. To be even more precise, it was the 3rd's unnecessarily annoying grandson who crashed into Kankuro. Hey, it hurts. The brother began dissatisfied. He lies everything, but I understand him. 3 days on the road and an unplanned wandering around an enemy-allied village. My mood couldn't be worse. She made herself comfortable on the branch, hiding her chakra. Fortunately, I walked a little further. They didn't notice me right away. You have to show up impressively. No matter the strength level, first impressions are very important. Konohamaru! Something screamed. Yours! This noisy, loud, annoying little booger is Uzumaki Naruto? Not impressive. At all. I liked him better in the manga/anime. Maybe it's not too late. Getting used to the excessive noise there, for example? Kurama. The tanuki roared in my subconscious. Yeah, that's it. Half of the irritation clearly came from Shikaku. And his chronic intolerance to fox. Are they allergic to each other? Behind my thoughts, I listened to Sakura's confused apologies and came across a cry. Hey, fatty, let him go! Blatant lie. My brother isn't fat at all. The clothes are just a little stupid. In response to the smug grin of Kankuro, who continued to hold Sarutobi by the scruff of the neck, the main character of this entire farce called Shinobi World rushed to the attack. Useless to the point of impossibility. All the brother did was trip him with a thread of chakra. Focus is at the genin level, or even lower. But the Konokovites are so surprised. It was as if the sea had opened up. I can't stand children, began the only guy in our team. Especially such small and ignorant ones. And he pretended to take a swing. Yeah, he'll hit, of course. I'll give you a slap on the head, I'll believe that. Temari rolled her eyes. Yeah, she also realized that this speech was about children, just a veiled. No luck with the sisters, especially the youngest. With my peripheral vision I noticed movement on a nearby branch. And here the Uchiha deigned to show up. I find myself behind him and grabbed the hand raised to throw him by the wrist. Fuck you, Sasuke. I will not allow anyone from my family to throw stones. It's not worth it. I calmly notice with my usual emotionless face in public. Somewhere below, Konohamaru, who had received a well-earned slap on the head, groaned. The Uchiha turned around with a rather dumbfounded and terribly annoyed face. Well, yes, the scribe crept up unnoticed. The brunette tried to pull his hand away. Will not work. At least with physical I'm not very prepared, but my grasping reflex is well developed. After all shinobi fight with the kunai in a death grip. Sakura screamed from below. Oh, I'm a girl. And about Sasuke-kun. And she even encroached on his coolness. Oh, I have no forgiveness. I take a quick look at my stage 3 headache. Nothing like that. Maybe. I would even like it if he weren't such a bastard in the near future. I let go of my hand, having thrown the team out of emotional balance, and shunshin moves exactly between brother and sister. It didn't turn out very well, as usual. The pumpkin weighed again and I emerged from the grains of sand with a specific roll forward. On half-bent legs, arms dangling along the body. Combined with my thinness and pallor, it's an unusual sight. It's not for nothing that Kankuro often compares me to a broken puppet. Similar. In all senses. Let's go, I say calmly, and I'm already turning around, when Haruno inopportunely climbs in. Hey, wait! And off we go. They say they are allies, but they are obliged to detain us. You never know, are we going to kill the Hokage? And where does it come from? Can't this girl really assess the danger? In any case, for now they won't be able to do anything to us. Unless they make some noise. Fortunately, Temi saved the 7th team in time, explaining to them about Chunin Shuriken. How so? It seems like we haven't known each other for 5 minutes, but I want to kill them all. The talent is to get on your nerves. Or have I become so unsociable, living side by side with single-tailed schizophrenia? Sasuke, who had already climbed down from the tree, stood nearby and looked at us with obvious cynicism. The cynicism of a microbe that has decided that it has taken over the world. Hey, what's your name? Sabaka no Gaara. I do not mind. Few people know the name of the current Kazekage. The Uchiha stood, looked at me and realized that he would not expect a counter-question from me. And I, not interested. I already know more about you than you do yourself. And I don't intend to please the Uchiha's overly inflated pride. The brunette fell silent. Offended, or what? But Naruto really lit up. This is understandable. Being nasty to your neighbor is always pleasant. Hey. Do you want to know my name? Uzumaki jumped. She examined him skeptically. Well, he doesn't look like a shinobi, even if you stand or fall. Although, for him this is such a chance to shut up the Uchiha. I barely nod. But in vain. A lot of information immediately hits me. I am Uzumaki Naruto! And I will become Hokage. And also... How loud. I silently turn around and leave. Does he really have potential? Kan, who caught up with me, asks. Yes. He will become a good shinobi. I glance back, where the subject of our conversation is jumping around the fire like a macaque around the fire around the Uchiha. Looks like his day was a success. Someday. I add doomedly. It's interesting that no one except me noticed that team number 7 was being followed. Chapter 10 Chunin Shuriken, the beginning. The hotel was ordinary. A hotel with a swimming pool, a spa, or at worst, hot springs. Everything remains a dream. It's not that the rooms are bad, on the contrary, everything is to the point, nothing superfluous, in Japanese style, although what to expect? This is Japan, but we have been stuck in this hotel for almost a month and a half. And only an idiot would train in a foreign village. Boring! 40 minutes had passed since we checked into our room. During this time, I had already climbed everything, brought Bucky to a nervous tic and the ANBU observer to hysterics. I would still howl at the moon, but there is no moon during the day. Kankuro was once again taking Karasu apart piece by piece and had already received a warning from Temari about what would happen to him if he didn't clean up everything after himself. Well, my little sister likes order. She herself lovingly looked at the terrible iron colossus, proudly called a fan. How is it not hard for her? Although, it's not for me, who always has a considerable amount of kilos behind me, to ask about this. And then the sensei finally remembered that he should tell us about the exam. He handed over applications for participation, said when, and most importantly, where to go. Well, he told me the rules. Or rather, their complete absence. Very nice. And judging by the identical grins of brother and sister, they agree with me. There are 20 hours until the first stage of Chunin Shuriken. Wow! Somehow it got dark quickly. Of course, there's lighting in the room, but not very good. I had to light candles. Beautiful. And cozy. In the middle of the room, like a sultan, can settle down with his puppet in a semi-disassembled state. Without your favorite hat and makeup. And even in normal clothes, black pants and a t-shirt. There's some kind of screwdriver in his teeth, he's concentrating on picking at karasu, wincing funny when something doesn't come out. And plus add to this the candle standing nearby and the glare cast on Kankuro. Well, a sight for sore eyes, not a brother. It's just a pity that this doesn't happen often. It's more common to see his smug grin intended for his enemies. Temari also succumbed to the general indifference relaxed mood. He sits calmly on the balcony railing and combs his hair. Nearby lies a fan, an ordinary small one, although also with 3 moons. I remember there was a time when even with such a harmless object Temi managed to create a decent draft, but more precisely, a hurricane. One could also add that the moon was reflected in her eyes, but at 8 in the evening it is not there yet. And in general, we have romance here, if Temari were not my sister, but so, alas. Just a family evening, as far as this is possible in a foreign village, who knows how many kilometers from home. Do I really miss Suna? And I don't care. I am sleepy. She leaned more comfortably on the pumpkin standing next to her, not the first time she fell asleep while sitting, and she was frankly too lazy to get up and walk to the futon. I woke up with the first mugs, sorry, roosters. About 5 o'clock in the morning, probably. I wandered around the room and looked into the rooms. Everyone else was sleeping. She was touched, looking at her brother and sister. Sometimes it seems that I am the eldest. Although, purely theoretically, it is so. She didn't risk waking up any of them simply out of boredom. Sandy protection is protection, but I'm still afraid. After all, you don't want to see ruins instead of a hotel room. She stomped into the kitchen, found Dango there, and who is so thoughtful, and stomped along with the sweetness to the balcony. She pushed the shoji aside, thereby letting cool air into the room. Well, the morning in Konoha, like in Suna, is cold. I still had to close the shoji if such ventilation caused the relatives sniffling in the neighboring rooms to catch a cold, it wouldn't be good. She sat down on the railing like Temari did yesterday and began eating dango. You need to save up for the second test. Only I'm not a hamster. And Shikaku too, sort of. But it's similar, definitely similar. Unless he makes provisions for the winter. And the color suits in their cheeks always look like there is grain there. Ah! A weak mental kick from the raccoon abruptly interrupted his thoughts. And how does he understand when I think about him? The wind blew again, making me shiver. Still, maybe a short skirt and a mesh tank top are not the best clothes. She popped another ball of dango into her mouth and smiled. Tasty. She lazily looked around the street, deserted, quiet, just dawning. It seems like there are no other psychos with insomnia besides me. She looked at the neighboring roof. She blinked. She shook her head. But no. The ANBU, calmly sleeping at his post, has not disappeared. What impudence! Although the village is foreign, the sloppiness is Sinovo. She quickly popped the last ball of sweetness into her mouth, and jumped onto the roof as quietly as possible. Here comes the entertainment. She carefully sat down next to the peacefully snuffling fighter. You can't see the mask, because the umbu is sleeping with his face on the roof. And how does he manage to do this? But the blonde hair tousled by the wind involuntarily makes you smile. Now I would like to wake up this miracle, and stay alive. Wake up shinobi first hit, then look and then think. And I left the pumpkin with sand in the room. Of course, absolute protection will work without the presence of sand nearby. The chakra will simply crystallize, but it will take more time. And they don't hire you to be an umbu for your beautiful eyes, otherwise there would be bigger slits for those same eyes. And why are you standing on ceremony with him? Shikaka grumbled, dissatisfied. Oh, I don't like this. I didn't even have time to scream when a heavy bat formed over the sleeping man's head, and with considerable force she hit the ANBU on the head. Damn Shikaka! It will fall to me. The fighter, to his credit, took the blow well. The Tonto whistled just near the neck. She looked with regret at a few fallen hairs. She turned a questioning glance at the shinobi. He looked at me in surprise, looked at the windows of our room, and cursed loudly. He looked at me. I tried to cover my mouth with my hand, as much as possible with a mask. He muttered something like an apology, mixed with swearing. Thank Kami, he didn't seem to believe that I could have hurt him a little. And now the main thing is to smile and wave. Like I wasn't the one who caught him spying on us. And this is already distrust in the country of the wind, a political conflict. But keeping an eye on foreign shinobi is a necessity. It's a dead end, though. Milo smiled at the fighter, shook her already long red hair, and stared at a point in space. Beautiful sunrise. The ANBU nodded slowly, thinking about what to expect from me. Then he sat down next to me. Not cold? He nevertheless decided to inquire after a while, diligently examining the wall of the neighboring house. She shook her head negatively, and immediately shivered from a sharp gust of wind. Through the mask I see how the shinobi grinned kindly. He has children. Although I tried to imagine how we look from the outside. Tall, strong, fit, broad-shouldered, how corny, a blonde ANBU, and me, small, thin, pale, with obvious signs of chronic insomnia and bright red hair. Yes, I clearly lack impressiveness. Especially compared to the guy sitting next to him, it seems to me that he will be no older than 27. Although, who knows? So they treat me like a child. I snorted with displeasure when a cloak was thrown over my shoulders. I saw those, also part of the equipment of a special squad. You shouldn't dress so lightly, they reproached me. Exactly, young dad. He's right though. And guilty. I walked around the hotel in these clothes and didn't count on gatherings on the roof. It's hot in Suna. Are you bored? Yeah, such an unobtrusive interrogation. The spy's skills seem to have become thoroughly boring. I just arrived in Konoha yesterday. Although you know this yourself. Clear. Then they sat in complete silence. Which is better for me. Konoha was just waking up, the sun had already begun to warm with its rays. And I, warmed up in my raincoat, dozed off unnoticed by myself. I woke up from a surprised and shocked Gaara. She wrinkled her nose, wrapping her cloak tighter around her. It's so good, I don't want to get up at all. A laugh was heard somewhere above my ear. She opened her eyes in shock. Wow, damn it, I give it! It turns out that I was impudently sleeping, leaning against the fighter and resting my head on his shoulder. And also pulling his cloak all the way to his nose. She jumped up sharply, feeling the blood rushing to her cheeks. Sorry. I'll go. Temari watched this circus from the balcony, squinting too suspiciously somehow. Fine. Good luck on the exam. The ANBU waved his hand, getting up. And then he just disappeared, limping strangely. Well, what did you expect? He sat motionless for almost 3 hours while someone snorted under his ear. My leg seems to have gone numb. Couldn't you wake him up? I hissed angrily, landing near my sister. She chuckled vaguely and, saying that breakfast was ready, walked into the kitchen. Not forgetting to finally add sarcastically, cute, probably. I gritted my teeth angrily, turning towards the wash basin. After splashing cold water on her face, she asked, One-tailed pest, isn't this your prank? Well, I couldn't learn something like that, after all. Usually my conversations with strangers end with the inevitable sandy coffin. We need to go to missions less and talk to ordinary people. Snorted the raccoon. Is he reading his mind again? It's not me. Hormones? The Biju finished sarcastically. Nope. I'm afraid they will reproach me for this for a long time. I mentally kicked myself and scolded myself for being careless. And yet I had never noticed such friendliness in myself before. Could it really be hormones? Transitional age, there. I wiped my face with a towel and noticed one interesting detail. I was still wearing my raincoat. XO. And how to give? Running through the streets of Leaf shouting. And you, who was watching me, you forgot your cloak. Rave. Okay, he'll probably come back on his own. In general, you can take a closer look at it. When I become Kazakage, I will need Konoha shinobi I can trust. Relatively. She went into the kitchen and, ignoring the overly curious looks of her family, sat down at the table. Gaara, is there anything you want to tell your big sister? If anything, I will help. The main thing is patience. You say we sat in an embrace? Kankuro muttered displeasedly. Calm, just calm. Yeah. They look so cute together. She slowly rose from the table. The sand kicked up menacingly behind me. That's it, we got it. It's time to remind you why people in Suna are still afraid of me. And explain what happened on the roof. It's inconvenient or something. We went to the exam at 3. In advance, so to speak. Fortunately, Bucky was escorted to the desired building. It's still not possible to somehow navigate Konoha at all. We went up to the 3rd floor, not paying attention to the chunin under the henge, guarding office number 201. And a crowd of idiots who don't know the 3rd floor from the 2nd. Fortunately, we know how to count flights of stairs. They calmly entered the room. And a bunch of hateful glances immediately rushed at us. I barely restrained myself from snorting. Idiots, after so many years of living next to Shu, this is nonsense to me. For Temi and Kintu, only they had me instead of a bijou. Keeping an absolutely detached face, she walked deeper into the class, to the empty seats. There will be a lot of waiting. Temari impudently lounged on her desk, throwing her feet up on the chair next to her. After thinking, I automatically straightened the pumpkin and also lay down on the desk. Kankuro decided not to be so impudent and simply sat down on the long-suffering table. There is no one to be ashamed of here. And convenience is above all. And it doesn't matter that for shinobi this concept is far from real life. More precisely, missions. While we were waiting for the examiner to deign to appear, I, alas, don't remember the name, began to look at the rest of the people. What can I say? Genins are genins. At the peak of his genin powers. The average age of everyone here is probably 17. And this will be a chunin. Although there are individuals here who are clearly over 30. Has there been a massive dullness or weakening of the fighters? Cannot understand. And the funny thing is, none of them will become chunin. This is all strange. Closer to the door are the well-known, in the future, teams number 8 and number 10. Separately, which is strange. In general, a wonderful atmosphere, except that they are not at each other's throats. And why bother so much? Unclear. And then the door solemnly swung open, and team number 7 walked importantly into the audience. Well, I guess Chunin Shuriken has officially begun. Chapter 11 Chunin Shuriken, Test 1. The door swung open in fear, not wanting to be accidentally destroyed. There was a ringing silence in the audience. Everyone froze in place, unable to even move. Every now and then we began to hear admiring whispers like, "It's them, the same ones." It immediately became clear. Here they are, the strongest of the strong. The great 7th team. Nothing like that. They burst into the audience, perhaps with pathos, but they immediately lost all confidence. Although it is understandable, there are a lot of people who want to kill you, just turn away. They sit/stand, glaring with anger, as if this will make someone feel better. I yawned and propped my head on my hand. The circus is free. The only pity is that I know everything in advance. But no, not everything. I began to forget a lot of things. It seems a little early for sclerosis, then what? One hope is for some sand monster. This is someone who has a good memory. It's amazing. So, let's get back to our genins. It seems that the most adequate of them is Sakura, the only one who really assessed the threat. And then off we go. All the teams that had previously stubbornly ignored each other suddenly began to get to know each other. I wonder if it weren't for the seventh formation, they would still pretend to be a decorative item? It's a pity that we can't hear what they're saying. But they seem to be arguing. And they make a terrible noise. Cammy, it's like I'm in kindergarten. But you can't behave like that, where every first person has nerves that are very shaken by the long wait and the wonderful company. She leaned back on her desk and started counting to 10. It wouldn't hurt for me to calm down either. Because if I fall apart, they will grab everything. Absolutely. Once. The noise suddenly stops. Not otherwise, Kabuto tried. 2. The same Yakushi seemed to really frighten the guys. 3. Should I thank him for this? Then somehow. 4. Silence. Grace. 5. Gaara, don't you dare fall asleep. 6. I will kill you. I broke such an idol. 7. Shinobi instincts, intuition or whatever it is called, scream that they are looking at me very closely. 8. I cross my eyes. Yeah, still the same. And what do they want from me? Oh yes, information cards. That's right, I was itching for one A-rank mission there. 9. Even Shikaku is not bothered by the presence of Kyubi nearby. 10. It's just, my name is Uzumaki I'll show you all where crayfish spend the winter. Scribe. Fluffy and tailed. Everyone understand. Got it right. I barely restrained myself from howling and cracking my forehead on the desk. Well, how stupid. Although I probably forgot who we are talking about. Well, he attracted attention, that's for sure. Hey, isn't this the same one by any chance? Temari whispered in her ear. I nodded slightly and got off my desk. If I remember everything correctly, the examiners will show up soon. While Sakura was teaching Naruto, the sound shinobi decided to teach Kabuto a lesson. Idiots, you are just cannon fodder. And you're dancing to the tune not even of Orochimaru, but of this very Yakushi. And he seemed to agree with me. The spy is immediately visible, he notices all the details. And automatically manages to assess the level and training of sound engineers. What talent, but in the wrong place. And not the first time. Where is the Hokage looking? At least Anko was repulsed. And that's the point. While I was thinking, Kabuto dodged perfectly and was no less surprised when his glasses broke. And then he vomited. Ugh. Ugh. Nasty. I still can't get used to this feature of a shinobi. But from the outside they look impressive as shinobi of sound. Look at the surprised faces on most of the people. Pfft. Smoke, bang, chatter, and their lordships, the examiners, appeared before our eyes. Those who want to kill us, at the very least. But they achieved their goal, everyone froze like idols. What fear does to people? Nothing to say, expert. Ibiki Marino. Oh, what a man! I would fall in love, but I just feel sorry for my nerves. And those around me, I'm afraid, won't understand. I was distracted from my bleak thoughts about a bleak future by a terrible cry. What? Test? I agree, this is not good. But why yell like that? Pfft. What are your exams? Earlier, I remember it was. And the raccoon reminisced about the first exams, bloody cruel. I would like to take part. Oh well. What kind of thoughts? It's reached, it's called. What's that all about? That's right, the bad influence of all the evil ones on the kind and fluffy me. Kankuro, noticing my overly bloodthirsty smile, lightly nudged me with his shoulder. I shushed him, but returned an impartial expression on my face. No need to show your emotions here. Not in my nature. I calmly submitted my application, received a number, and went to the classroom. She found her place and sat down carefully. Modesty itself, Shikaku remarked sarcastically. Maybe. You start the test with 10 points. I look around. Temari and Kankuro listen carefully to the rules. I do not need it. It would be worth a listen though. It will probably come in handy in the future. The sum of the points of all three. Maybe it was worth telling your brother and sister about the meaning of the exam? Although, no. Stupid. How would I explain this extrasensory perception? Who is caught cheating? If you don't write it off, you'll fail. The whole world of shinobi is in such contradictions. We'll look after you guys, either Izumo or Kotetsu said promisingly. I could never tell them apart. And he leaned back imposingly in his chair. But you can't say that they are extraordinary gatekeepers. Ahead, Uzumaki could be heard howling about how difficult the fate of a genin was, and the life of a Hokage is even more difficult. In theory. Remembering Tsunade, all you need to do is put stamps on the papers and get rid of Madara in time. Ugh. I need to start writing a test. She ran her eyes over the sheet. Lovely, simply lovely. I don't even know how to approach most of the tasks. One cryptogram is worth something. But later I will have to deal with these issues. I have no doubt that I will encounter such nonsense more than once. After all, brains are a requirement to become a jonin. Although, remembering Might Guy, does this unknown creature still have adequate thinking? Quite possible. So judge after that by appearance. Okay, let's start the exam. Concentrated a little. Chunin immediately stand out. The only ones who immediately started writing. And they don't panic, which catches your eye. The only problem is overly curious examiners who want to drill a hole with their eyes. It's not so much distracting as it is annoying. She glanced sideways at her brother, who understood the hint. True, when he managed to award Kara's the title of examiner, I still didn't understand. Ibiki noticed, but he couldn't do anything. 5 violations. No less but no more. And playing tricks with a puppet is only 1 violation. Quite acceptable. I don't need to copy it yet. No one has really managed to write anything yet. Sit here for another 40 minutes. Out of boredom, I began to look closely at others. They were writing off what they were doing. Some are complete idiots who are about to fly out. And there are some interesting shots. The same 10th team. Ino, having successfully remembered all of Sakura's answers, has now moved into Shikamaru's body. And he tied all 3 with a shadow in advance. And now Yamanaka writes on 3 sheets of paper at once. Nothing to say, a scam worthy of respect. Many have already begun to lose their nerves. Even hysterics happen. And the examiners are only too happy to make the situation worse. Quite a few people have already dropped out of the exam, although there will be more. That's it, enough time has already passed. We can start. And I don't care about Ibiki's gaze. Well, yes. I was lucky to sit right in front of this gorgeous man. If he wants, let him admire me. I do not mind. I close my eye and make a seal with one hand. In the other, the third eye begins to form. True, I don't understand why it's brown. The examiner, who had been staring at me for a long time and persistently, deliberately tapped his pencil loudly. No, intimidation doesn't work on me. Yes, I don't hide my fraud. 1 violation. And they can't do anything to me for this. Yeah, it's a cheating exam. Although it would be easier to ask Shikaku, this impudent raccoon knows a lot of things. But he's harmful. I won't buy him off later. The most difficult thing is to connect the optic nerves. You need very good chakra control. If the tanuki does not interfere, there are no special problems. She chose a chunin, threw sand in his eyes and brazenly began to rewrite the answers. It took about 5 minutes at most. There is no need to describe it in great detail, anyway, no one needs it for nothing. I'm sorry. I need to go out. Kankuro. I don't know him, I'm not with him, then I need to go with you. Why did he drag Karas with him? Anyway. Unfortunately, I don't understand puppets very well. Secret techniques, to be sure. The time has come. Ibiki's voice from beyond the grave rang out. I announced the 10th question. Yes. But lists of those killed are usually announced in this tone. The door creaked and my brother entered the classroom. "I hope your doll helped you?" asked Marino. Kankuro froze in surprise. "I'll have to tell him later so that he doesn't shoot himself like that in the future. Even if caught, you still have to deny it." "Well, you never know, a double from a parallel world?" "And try refute it." And then something really interesting happened. Watching the head of the ANBU interrogation department work is worth a lot. True, even Tamari's nerves could not stand it, since she began to be indignant. And then the famous, "If you fail, you will remain genin forever" rave. They simply don't have the right. But the people began to pour in together. Kankuro looked at me and grinned. Then he exchanged glances with Temi. "Yes, I am the unofficial commander in our team. And if anything happens, no matter how crazy it is, they look to me for support. You can't wait. I won't run away." And so on. But to his credit, Naruto raised everyone's morale. He calmed me down and inspired me with confidence. Qualities of a true leader. True, they appear a little stupid. In essence, he helps his potential enemies. But what am I talking about? This is Uzumaki Naruto. And then Ibiki stunned everyone that they passed. With a satisfied smile. Why did he look better so suddenly? This is where Tamari finally got wound up. But everyone learned the whole truth about the exam. And there was no limit to the indignation. Until Ibiki took off the bandage. Horrible, just creepy. Scars, holes, burns. What an idiot you have to be to get captured, they snorted irritably in their heads. At least I could feel sorry for him. I've suffered through it, I think. And when you kill with a sand coffin, why don't you regret it? I just remained silent. Argument. And there is nothing to object to. Same thing, Shikaku snorted suspiciously and sneezed. Although it felt like they hit me on the head with something very heavy. I fell into prostration. And I missed the moment when something broke the glass. I am the examiner of the second stage Mitarashi Anko. And now live behind me. The one-tail sneezed again. The world has shaken again. I almost didn't crash onto my desk. What, the second stage will begin right now? Not now that Shikaku is allergic. The tanuki sneezed in agreement. Chapter 12 Chunin Shuriken, Forest of Death. Mitarashi's spectacular appearance turned into an equally spectacular failure. For no one understood what this strange woman in questionable clothes wanted. But we must pay tribute. Anko, sensei, was not at a loss and within a second began to run into Ibiki. Well. He is good. Relatively. Well, at least not so noisy. In the end, having embarrassed herself at the very beginning, our examiner, it seems, decided to get even and scare everyone. No worse than Marino, I must say. Yes. It will be interesting. Okay, I'll explain everything on the spot. Follow me. The woman said promisingly and effectively jumped out the window. So what, should we all follow her in a crowd? Pchi! Damn you, Shikaku! Although, considering that the demon is in my head, either I or my sanity will fail. In short, sit down already, you sneezer with a tail. And the world shook again. What kind of punishment is this? Sis, are you okay? She turned her unfocused gaze to her brother and shook her head vaguely. Apchu! My knees gave way and I almost hung on Kankuro's arm. Now we would like to sit on his neck and hang our legs, but we can't. We are now stomping in an unfriendly group after Mitarashi to the exit from the village. As I understand it, the forest of death is there. Or they are leading us to execution, although there is not much difference. Gaara? Tamari slowed down a little and put her hand to my forehead. Hot. Are you sick? Not me. Noticing her sister's perplexed look, she added. It doesn't matter. Everything is fine. Pchi! So it's true. Walking around Konoha was boring. More precisely, walk in such a crowd. No streets to be seen, no village, no people. Maybe this is a cunning method of fighting against espionage? Out of boredom, I started counting the sneezes of one tanuki. At 36 we finally reached the training ground. I wonder how many kilometers there are in one sneeze? Cammy, what am I thinking about? Although, considering the landscape around me, not the worst thoughts. Huge, no, gigantic, again not that fucking big, unclear whether they are still alive or not, trees. The visible absence of living creatures, light, and all this behind barbed wire, a bunch of locks and signs. Danger to life! No entry! So this is what it is, training ground number 44. It must be said that something similar, albeit minus the trees, exists in Suna. Also a training ground for Chunin Shuriken. I don't remember why I climbed there. But the good impressions lasted for a long time. Literally. But I had to abruptly emerge from my memories, because I'm not in Suna, no matter what angle you look at it from. And then something incomprehensible began. Personally for me. Naruto decided to show off, intimidate Enko even more, and at the same time put the presumptuous genin in his place. I must say, she throws kunai well. Even Orochimaru cut off one hair. It's people like you who are the first to go to waste, hee. The examiner began sweetly, appearing behind Uzumaki. They have such red, tasty blood. Kankuro grimaced. What a heresy! Shikaka sneezed indignantly. I almost choked. You, ugh, where did you pick up such words? By the way, according to one version, I am a priest who became a demon. Apchi. Yeah, I heard this nonsense. Isn't it because of your Jinchuriki? The answer was a sneeze. Something about the past, and especially about Bunpuku, is not discussed by the Tanuki. It's a pity, of course, but we haven't had a heart-to-heart talk yet. And the 13-year-old little one is unlikely to be taken seriously by the Bijou. Maybe later. But I got distracted again. And at this time, the hero of the entire fandom found himself between two blood-sucking snakes. Well, how could Enko not recognize her beloved sensei? Question. Then Mitarashi explained to us the rules, or rather, the almost complete absence of them, unexpectedly said. Be careful there. And send us to receive scrolls and sign statements, saying that we ourselves are going to our deaths, and if something happens, we will not howl under the windows in the form of ghosts. I'm lying, of course, these are unnecessary paper formalities, without which there is no way. Although the idea is interesting, what do you say, Gaara? Temari asked tensely, peering at the gate. According to the clock, it will open in a couple of minutes. Nonsense. The last mission is even more dangerous. Isn't it too careless? Kankuro threw his hands behind his head. Who would talk about carelessness? Are you really afraid? She looked at her brother skeptically. Nothing but cowardice was observed in him. Don't worry, brother, I'll look after you. She smiled sweetly, the observer's teeth were starting to clench, and rubbed her brother's cheek. Oh, you little thing! The gate opened with a loud grinding noise. All teams rushed forward simultaneously. Now the exam has begun. The first people we met were not the wild, scary, abnormal inhabitants of the forest, who, as it turned out, were avoiding meeting Shikaku, who was eager to release some ki, but suicides from the village of Rain. 30 years at least. As far as I remember, Akatsuki is now thriving in Amigekyo. And the fact that almost immediately I, the Jinchuriki, met with the genin of AIM was no coincidence, at least. Fury slowly began to rise from the depths. Just a couple of years, and already Shikaku will be served to you on a silver platter? Yes, I haven't been angry for a long time. But it's time to return to the role of the unfeeling demon. That is familiar to many. Just the time and place. You will die. Their leader promised me. Are you going to chat for a long time? Already got it. Wow, I got mad from a couple of words. What a beauty! Gaara! Let's first find out what kind of scroll they have. I don't care. I abruptly cut off my brother. I'll just kill them. The relatives were wary. They are afraid not so much of me as of me. And for the environment. Faye! What arrogance! The man threw the umbrellas. Quite practical, considering the climate of his village. Die! Ninpo, spiny rain! That's the exact name. There was a shower of needles here. As pathetic as it is equally useless against me. I didn't even look. Temari will have no problem defending herself with the wind. Kankuro, if anything, will cover himself with a puppet. But they were aiming exclusively at me. So even better. And it's all? Folded her arms over her chest and looked expectantly at her opponent. Everyone has a fairly similar reaction to sand protection shock. I still didn't understand the meaning of the repeated attack. But the needles stuck into the sand were strange. Was he aiming for the legs? A wall of sand? And the brother began to explain. It's quite fun to explain to your opponents that they never really had a chance. And it's worth scaring the 8th team sitting in the bushes. You can't cope with Gaara. Ken finished lazily and almost yawned. Shut up! The raincoat yelled and rushed forward, waving his umbrella menacingly. Well, to whom did they explain just now that physical attacks are useless? The sand swaddled the shinobi in a couple of seconds. But everyone, minus the relatives, was quite scared. Umbrellas immediately fell, losing control. It's time to end the show. We must pay tribute. The cannon Gaara killed spectacularly. Should I give him his due? And I myself want to deal more harshly with the Amangekyo ninja. She came up, took an umbrella and opened it over her head. If only the needles didn't fall off. And then it's a matter of technology. Raise your hand and sharply clench your fist. Sand coffin. It's a pity that my head flew off into the bushes. The remaining 2 do not faint. The rain fell on them. It does not hurt. The sand killed him before he could feel the pain. Damn, calmed me down. We will give you the scroll, just please, aha. No, really. And Temari is a sadist. Not only did she say, bye, with a sweet smile, but she also managed to wave her hand. Lucky. They have a scroll of heaven. Now you can go to the tower. No. That's not all. I abruptly interrupted my brother. He squinted his eyes in the direction of the bushes in understanding and shouted, Get out already, idiots! And team number 8 crawled out. Frightened to the extreme. Oh yes. They probably haven't gone on assassination missions yet. Here, take it, we already have both scrolls, I begin coldly. They shudder and freeze. I haven't seen such horror for a long time. Slowly I extend my hand in their direction. They close their eyes, waiting for death. I sharply clench my fist. At least they learned to hide. Idiots. The genins open their eyes in disbelief. Yes, they surrendered to me, kill them. I defiantly unclench my fist, in which a pumpkin sand plug has appeared. I turn around, plug the bottle with sand and, nodding to my brother and sister, jump onto the nearest branch. There are still 7 kilometers to cut to the tower. The sound of 3 falling bodies was heard from behind. Are you really that impressed? After 10 minutes of jumping along the branches, I was tired of this extremely exciting and most importantly useful activity. Finally and irrevocably. I also want to set a record for the time it takes to complete the second stage. And why is this necessary? It's better not to attract attention. Oh, got it. You can also use sand. Just for chronic laziness. Yes, and faster than monkeys, jumping through trees. Temari and Kankuro were skeptical about my idea, but laziness won out. Of course, sitting on a sand platform is much better. Besides, even if we are attacked, the sand defense will work on Temari and Kankuro too. Oh, how much energy and nerves I spent on this. But justice was restored, Mother loved the 3 of us, and only I had protection. True, this only works when I'm nearby. Otherwise, the sand stubbornly refuses to help my relatives. Nobody, Temari summed up. I nodded in agreement. It seems they weren't expecting us so early. To get to the tower you got there, to enter you entered, and then what? Inappropriately, I remembered how Enko promised that we would spend 5 days in the forest anyway. Well, lovely. Let's go further, maybe it will be warmer there. Indeed, the situation is just right, concrete walls, burnout light bulbs on the wires, a draft, and a loud slamming door. Door? Look, our plan worked. The idea of waiting in the tower and then taking the scrolls is not so bad. I could barely resist slapping my hand in the face. Well, what idiots! Isn't it clear that if we came so early, it means we are strong? Although, there is an option that some team was using its last strength to get to the tower, but you can't go here without scrolls. It's their luck that the examiners are somewhere philandering. Oops. Kankuro took his puppet off his shoulder. So you can warm up. I didn't look any further. A few poison kunai, a dent on the concrete from Temari's fan, a couple of minutes, and then the last body falls to the floor. Wow! The brothers sat down next to their leader. They were from List. I nodded in confusion, looking at the camera's blinking red eye. Pshee! What now? What again? It never stopped. Apch! I thought your allergy was already gone. There's no snake or karama nearby. Ha ha! Allergic to this red peacock? No, I, of course, don't love him, but not to that extent. And how do you imagine this? Would the Ten-Tails then have a chronic runny nose on itself? I stepped up. Well, why did you sneeze then? Bad living conditions, water on the floor. You're sitting on the sand. Previous Jinchuriki had. I don't even know what to object to. By the way, why then do I have sand instead of water in my subconscious? There was water there. It's just that while you were killing your uncle, the seal weakened and I was able to change the situation a little. You know, it's quite harmful to be in humidity for decades. So why did you get sick? Because if you don't interrupt now, the howls about evil fate will last for hours. You see, my body has such a complex structure that for normal existence it needs blood. What, did those AIM ninjas have rain flowing through their veins? The blood of strong opponents. Yes, even that, Uchiha. If you don't want to talk, then don't. I snorted offendedly and crawled out of my subconscious. Quite in time, because in front of our aimlessly wandering group an examiner fell out of the Shushnin. Congratulations on successfully completing the second stage. Your team adequately represented the land of wind and Sunigekyo no Sato, setting a new passing record 57 minutes. With which I congratulate you. The official standard words do not fit in with the examiner's face. Tom seems extremely curious about how we managed to get through so quickly, and most importantly, without getting hurt. And he wants to find out, it seems, by examining our corpses. Thank you. Temari snorted. And what next? Now I will show you the rooms where you will stay until the end of the test. Follow me, please. Yes, it seems the main fun has just begun.